And I was just about to leave, and I looked a little farther down the canal, and I found this poor little guy. And as I picked him up, I told him, "You're safe, you're rescued now too." And then I looked closer, and I noticed this poor little boy, about half of both of his front legs were just chewed off, and he was left down here to die. And this is more than likely from a juvenile raccoon. I see this kind of damage very commonly with raccoons, but an adult raccoon would have probably killed, chewed up a red-eared slider this size a lot more completely, cracked his shell, and probably eaten all four of his legs and chewed his head off, and might have even carried him out of here. A larger adult raccoon would have been big enough to probably, climb the fence with him, or at least would have done a lot more damage. But the juveniles, not being big enough to really carry off a turtle this size, will just be opportunistic and chew off their head if they can get it. You chew off a limb or two and just leave them. So this was probably a juvenile raccoon. I can see the scuff marks on the bottom and the top of his shell there, and right there I can see everywhere where the keratin is rubbed off, and that's where the animal was chewing, was probably flipped him over, had him on the ground here, and then flipped him upside down, and that's where the scuff marks on his keratin come from, because he was probably being held down as it got its snout in there far enough to just bite off half of each of his front legs. Unfortunately, that's bad for the little boy red-eared sliders, because they tend to have the long toenails, the long nails on the front, which they use in courtship to tickle the face of the female. So they have the long nails on their front limbs, and that's probably what allowed his front legs to be grasped and pulled out far enough to be chewed off. He's not going to be releasable now, missing half of his front legs, but he can survive it, and he can get by in sanctuary. He doesn't have to die of that, but he's going to be disabled.